Oh, and try to speak English. Okay. So before we actually create it, are you familiar with what React is? Are you familiar with JavaScript?
JavaScript. Yeah.
Okay. People don't write just JavaScript anymore. I'm not gonna open up. You know how you had the HTML file? People don't do that anymore. Like you write a file .html, you write code, and you run it, and that is your website, right? So what most people do now is they will use a framework, which is not a language. It's a framework that uses JavaScript and HTML and all those things. Okay? So React is a framework that uses JavaScript, HTML, CSS, all those things. Okay? What a framework is it's a collection of things to make things easy for you. Right? So, because think about it like this. If you actually want to make a website, you have one HTML file. That's one page, right? Just like you had. And just like in your project, you had multiple pages, right? How do you link all these pages together? How do you do all those things? So you need to code all those things out for you. How do you manage all these pages? You need to code all these things out. Instead, you can use a framework that does all those those administration things, whatever you want to call them, behind the scenes. You just worry about coding pages. You don't have to worry about any of those things anymore. So that's why these things are really nice. So to create one, let's go to Documents and MPX. You get create React app, and you give it whatever name you want. So we're doing an HR complaint website, HR complaints. Now, this command of MPX, create React app, you'll never have to see it again. Because we created React app, we don't use that command ever again. Okay? So this is going to take some time before we get this out. Okay. Estas sí. Okay. So that is all done, right? It's all created and stuff. So let's open our IDE to actually, just like you had that IDE for Java, we have one for this as well. And let me open, that's a different project. Open folder, HR complaints. Okay. So this by the way, if I go to that, you see all those files and folders? I'm in that directory, right? I didn't create any of those. It already did that. Okay. So if I just do, if I want to run this website, just like you ran with that play button, I do npm start. So I just installed it, and I'm already starting it. It's going to give me a default page. This is the default page. It just means that this app is working, and yeah. So how is that page getting displayed? Here's all these folders and all these files, right? Where is that page getting displayed? What is saying to display that page? So we can change it because we want to do our own page, right? Okay. It is all here. So if I change this app.js, okay, you see logo. Did I close it? No, I didn't. Oh, well, I did. edit blah 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 and save to reload. Oh, it's actually even telling you edit this file and save to reload. So save to app.js. App.js. There it is, right there. Edit this file, save to reload. So if you'll notice, this stuff looks like JavaScript. This stuff inside this return looks like HTML. That's what it is. Okay? All right. So let's actually go ahead and change this. And let's make this really, really simple. You remember some HTML stuff? Okay. I don't know why this is indented. Weird. Okay. So we just have an empty div container. So if I save this and I run this, would I see anything? No. Right, yeah. So we just add a simple testing. Alright, I saved it. Okay. So all my app, okay, if I have a million pages, or as we'll call them in a second, components, if I have a million of them, they all have to narrow down to here. If anything I do is not called upon in this root.render, we won't see it. Okay? So if I make another file instead of app.js, if I make another file called homepage.js, and I don't include it somewhere here in the proper way, there's no way I can see that page. Everything has to be narrowed down to here. Okay? All right. Yes? Does this sound like good? Okay. So if we're making an HR website for complaints, since it's HR, and since that's an internal, imagine you're working in a company, and it's a website that you employees use, because obviously HR, other people don't use it. Usually those websites are going to be ugly. So we have to make a website that doesn't look very good. So let's get some, let's start with a header, okay? I'm going to do a new folder. I'm going to call it components. Actually, before I do that, no. Let's not do that. Delete. Let's just do a new file. Let's call it header. Right? So, headers and footers, right? Header is at the top, footers at the bottom. Yeah, let's do a header. What's usually in a header? Which should we put in a header? Title. Okay, let's start with that. All right, so we have a fresh, what we'll call a React component. Okay, I told you a little bit about components, did I? So, components are what set React apart from the old frameworks. Because React is not the first framework to do this, by the way. But what components do for us is, instead of the entire page loading at once, right? React, you can specify components for each bit. However, if you want your whole page to be one giant component, that's fine. If you want your whole page, the header, the content of the home page, the footer, that, if you want each one to be its own component, you can do that too. And the reason why that's nice is because each component will load independently. So you're not going to see like an entire just blank page, unless if you make your whole page one component. Okay? Oh, and another really nice thing about components, a header. Usually that's on every page, right? So if you think about it, if I don't have these components and I'm writing every single page, right? I have to put that header code in every single page. Whereas here, I just call that header component. It's like calling a function. Rather than writing all that code again, you can just call the function, right? So we're doing the header component right now. Okay, and with every React component, you always start it by importing React. Why? I don't know. Okay, just do that. All right. Now, to declare a component, there are either do you remember classes and functions? Not too a little bit. Okay. You can either have a class component, a component that is a class, or a function component, a component that is a function. Okay. I used to like by the book always do class components. I don't know why, but I just made sense in my head. And then when I started doing more and more projects, I just switched to functional components because class components have a lot of like excess typing and syntax that you don't need. So functional components are very simple. So if we were familiar with JavaScript, you declare it just like you declare any function in JavaScript. Function, and then the function name. We'll call it header. Okay, it should be the same name as the file, right? Right. Remember that return function method that had the HTML in it? We need that too. Return is where your HTML lives. Okay. And another thing. Return can technically only return one HTML element. So what I mean is I can't have p tag hello and another p tag or an h1 or whatever testing. I can't do that because it needs to return just one HTML element. So you might think, well, how am I'm going to have a million components then. How do I, my component has to have more than just one tag. What you do is very simple. Just surround everything by a parent div container. Now it's happening. Okay? And always make sure you export. Export default header. I don't really know why that's there either, but I think that is so that you can call upon this component later. Remember how we want to call upon it? Yeah. Remember how we need to eventually include it here and somewhere in here for it to be rendered, for it to be shown. So right now we have no way of seeing this component. Okay, that's fine. We'll get to that in a second. Okay. So you said we wanted a title, right? Let's do an H1 tag. What do you want the title to be? HR, I don't know, complaints? I don't know what. Think of something funny. HR complaints. Oh, let's add like a subtitle. Complaints with the up. We take your complaints very seriously. Okay. Alright. So you tell me. I want to render this. I want to see this component. How do I do that? I'll give you a hint. It's something to do with this file. Right. It needs to be here, right? So right now, this is rendering app, which is this, right? So if I change this to header, okay? Now there is one more thing. I need to import it, right? Import header from there. Now that should be good. And notice this one got faded out because we're no longer using that. Okay. So if I save that, now it's showing this, and it's not showing app. You see what I'm saying? It's showing this, and it's not showing this anymore because we removed it. So if you're wondering, well, what if I have multiple pages? How do I do that? We'll get to that in a second. That's later. But yeah, let's finish doing our header. So it doesn't. Maybe we want a little bit of spacing between that left, right? Do you think we should? We'll add spacing, but do you think it should be left, like aligned left here, or do you think it should be centered, or do you think it should be aligned right? Center. Okay. Ooh, bootstrap. Should we do that now? Yeah, why not? Okay. Remember the rows and columns stuff? We're gonna install that. So in my React project, right now it doesn't have any special add-ons or anything, any additional resources. So I'm gonna install something. npm is the package manager for Node. Okay, so anytime you do an install, you need to do npm. npm install. I think it's just bootstrap. And let me make sure. npm install bootstrap, and then in index.js, just import this. Okay, easy enough. Index.js, import it. All right, I think this should be it. So I just did that because with Bootstrap you can do a lot of these centering and aligning and all these things a lot easier, right? Okay. Now that I installed Bootstrap, I have to play by, if I want to use their resources, I have to play by their rules. Okay? So before you go on defining rows and columns, you need to define a container. Container fluid. Okay? Now I can use rows and columns and stuff. Let's do a row to put all this stuff in. Oh, and let's do a column. Notice they're all divs. Column. I'll do it. Each row has a maximum of 12 columns. Okay? So if I did a column of size 12, that means it's taking up the whole row. Okay, and to center it in that column, I can do deflex align items center no justify no deflex align item center justify content center.
Sorry, not the refresh.
Huh?
Not the refresh.
I don't think you need to do it's not running. We have to do npm start because I did npm start before, but I canceled it to install, so now I have to run it again. There we go. Okay. So, that is just something that happens when you do deflex. So I think you do if you do flex column. Okay, there we go. Maybe some padding at the top. We can do that inline. Let me make this a little neater. Style. Margin top. Let's do it 5%. Let's see, that's too much. 2. That's it, man. There. So we have a header, and this is something we'll hope. Well, maybe put on most of our pages. But that's enough for now. So basically, what we know is how to create a component, how to put some basic HTML stuff in it, and how to render it. Okay? Yeah. That's good for now.